Yeah, so bro, we're gonna be looking at mastering your song. I'm gonna be using a project here, but I'm not gonna export everything. I hear people asking, how do you know if your song is balanced? As in, how do you know if your vocal and the beat is balanced together? Well, there's no special way of doing this, or there's no special way of knowing if the vocal is balanced. But the most important thing is if you can hear the lyrics of the vocal, then you're getting it right. So let me just play it now.
Falling, don't know where we're going, but it's alright. Lighting, drowning out the darkness with our light. None of it matters, no, none of it matters by our side. Take this reality, leave it behind. Close your eyes. We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight, out of mind. 'Cause right here, we're creating perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here.
If you could hear the lyrics properly, then you know that it's balanced. So before we go on to the mastering process, so I would like to say something about this your master. So you don't do your mastering on your project. You have to mix everything, then get it into a single wave file before you start the mastering process. You take your cursor to the loudest part of the song.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here, and I know we
So if you take a look at my meter, I'm not going above minus 3 dB. Okay, if your instruments are going is already at 0, then there is no need of mastering your song. So I'm not going above minus 3 dB. I make sure that it's either minus 6 or minus 9 dB. So if it's at 0, then you're not going to have a proper master. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to export this file. And when you're exporting your file for mastering, you're going to export it in a wave format. So let me just take some parts of this song now and go to the mastering process. So I'm going to export this as a wave file. So I'm just using this one as a demonstration to show you. And when you're exporting, you should make sure you're exporting in a very high quality. So since our file is exported, I'm going to create a new project. So, and I'm going to drag the file down to FL Studio. So I'm going to be quick about this one. So mastering this file, the first thing I want to do is to mute this fruity limiter here. Then I'm going to be adding limiter, and I'll be using a limiter from fabfilter. And again, I will always say, if you want to master your song, you're not going to make the volume so loud because it's going to affect your listening. So you just make sure that your volume is down in the way that you could hear the song. So I won't advise you to make it very loud. When you're listening something, if you're listening for too long, it's going to make you tired. So I added the limiter, fabfilter limiter. So this is fabfilter Pro L. So I'm going to come to this advanced.
falling, don't know where we're going, but it's alright. Lighting, drowning.
So I'm going to be selecting transparent because I want everything to be transparent. I think everything is fine like this. So I just change every the style to transparent. Then I adjusted the gain, but not too much, just a little bit, because if you push it very high, it's gonna affect the way it sounds. So you can mess around with the attack or release time, but for me everything sounds nice. So I'm going to go ahead and add the next item. So I'm going to be adding an EQ here, and I'll be using Pro Q2. So I'm going to reset all this to default. So depending on the style of music, you can just do a high pass. Here I just double clicked here, then you can do a high pass to cut away some muddy frequencies, because according to what they say about the human ears, you can't hear anything below this point. If it's around 20, it's gonna double it, and you can only hear from 40. So I'm gonna just leave it like this a little bit, because I don't want, this song doesn't have much of bass. So if your song is like a hip hop song or song that has a lot of low ends, then you can cut that part out a little bit, not just cutting out a lot of the low ends. So you have to use your ears, listen to what you're doing, and don't be scared about anything. So feel free. So the next thing I want to do now, I'm going to play this song, and I'll be looking for a bad frequencies in the song to cut away. So you're not just cutting anywhere. Don't just select anywhere and cut and do this. Don't do that. Just listen attentively, listen properly before you cut. So I'm going to play this song, and I'm going to be using 6 dB up here, so that I can see. I won't be cutting too much. Like now, for example, you see what happens here when I brought it to 6 dB. I noticed that I'm even cutting too much of the low ends. So I'm going to leave it at 6 dB, and I'm going to take this. And one thing to make note of is when you're cutting, make sure you're not boosting anywhere like this. When you're cutting, make sure everything is straight. If you think you made a mistake about this, or you can hold control down, then click on this, on this here, and it's going to reset to default.
Falling, don't know where we're going, but it's alright.
So I always say around if you want to get the sweet spot of a vocal, you can find it around from 3K. From this is 2K, from 3K to 5K. That's where you get the sweet spots. Do not boost around 7K, because you're going to add annoying frequencies to your song. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look for a sweet spot around 3K to 5K. I'm going to take this high, not too high.
Falling, don't know where we're going. Matters by our side. Take this reality, leave.
So I want to boost it around just 1 dB. Around 1 dB is enough.
Falling, don't know where we're going, but it's alright.
So I'm going to look for annoying frequencies that I don't like in the song. So I'm going to take it up even further. Okay, I'm going to take it, but not too much. And I'll tighten it up. 1 dB is too much. So I think about 0.6. So make sure you're not taking you're not cutting too much, because you're gonna ruin your song.
Falling, don't know where we're going, but it's alright.
So this is the process you have to go through, just checking.
Fall.
Anything you hear that you don't like, cut it down a little bit, and it will make the song more clearer. So I think this is fine.
Falling.
So I'm gonna bypass this. So if you're mixing in FL Studio, so there's a button here which says enable effect slot. So I'm gonna disable this and see how the song sounded before.
Falling, don't know where we're going, but it's alright. Lighting, drowning out the darkness with our light. None of it matters, no, none of it matters.
Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna be adding is multi-band compressor. So if you notice, I'm using just fabfilter plugin for this mastering tutorial. So I'm gonna be using this Pro MB. So I'm gonna be loading Pro MB from fabfilter. So you can see my chain, how I'm doing it. So I'm going to go to the loudest part of the song, and I'm going to listen to my kick in case the kick is some part of the kick are louder than some parts, or it's going to balance it. So let me check that now.
None of it matters, no, none of it matters. But we could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall.
So I'm gonna be looking for where my kick is located.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight, out of mind. 'Cause right here, we're creating perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here, and I know we deserve this. Don't you worry, don't you worry,
Any plugin you add and you've done your tweaking, you should always bypass to see how the original sounds, and when you're done, to compare it with the original and the one you just did.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun.
So I'm gonna add another one at the mid section of the song.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight.
That's where my snare is located. So I want the snare to be punchy and compressed.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight, out of mind. 'Cause right here, we're creating perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here, and I know we deserve this. Don't you worry, don't you worry, my dear. And I know that you're hurting with each tear, but I know that it's.
So everything sounds good. The next thing I want to be adding, it's my favorite, and that's a saturator. So I'll always advise you add a saturator to your master chain. So I'm going to be using Saturn from fabfilter. So I'm going to be selecting clean, or gentle saturation.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun.
Then I'm going to add this band drive a little bit.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight, out of mind. 'Cause right here, we're creating perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here, and I know we deserve this. Don't you worry, don't you worry, my dear. And I know that you're hurting with each tear, but I know that it's worth it. No.
So all good. So now I want to brighten this. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to add an EQ under. So this can be any EQ you like, any EQ that has a knob, not like a parametric EQ. So I'm going to be using an EQ from Waves. So let me just select which one. Okay, I'm going to be using HEQ. I hope it's not parametric. Oh, it is parametric, so I'm not going to use that. Okay, let me just use Arrow 6 EQ, and I'm going to add a high to make it bright.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight, out of mind. 'Cause right here, we're creating perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here, and I know we deserve this. Don't you worry, my.
So I think everything is good now. You have your mastering process. So if you think it's not really loud, you can as well go to the limiter and boost up the volume. But as while you're boosting up, you're going to set to make sure that it's not clipping.
We could be anywhere, any way that we want. We could be anything under the sun. Little by little, let our mistakes fall out of sight, out of mind. 'Cause right here, we're creating perfect. Right here, look beneath the surface. Right here.
So having all this set like this now, we're going to be checking for clipping. So I'm going to export this file now as it is like this. So if you have Audacity installed, you're going to load up Audacity and check for clipping. So I'm going to drag this into Audacity, and as you can see, our audio is not clipping. If clipping, you're going to see red lines.
Falling